The Blackcaps, they have finished their T20 series against England. Meanwhile, the New Zealand A team is continuing their second game against Australia A. Oh, Tom Bruce hit a century. Bowlers like New Zealand A is in a good position once again against Australia A. And we covered this on the subscriber podcast. New Zealand A has 2 victories and a draw this year against Australia A. So if you're a hater of New Zealand cricket, if you think the Blackcaps suck and they should be like, what's going on? All the narratives that we observed last summer as the test situation was happening against England, and they were selecting old players, and where's all the young players for the Blackcaps? Why do the Blackcaps suck? Rah, 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 rah. Well, New Zealand A has 2 victories and a draw in 3 games against Australia A. So let's just chill out. I think Kiwi cricket's doing all right. As far as the Blackcaps versus England go, now they move into an ODI series, and the best bowler, Ish Sodhi, he's not in the ODI squad. His spin overs are likely to go to Rachin Ravindra. So that's a sneaky little thing to watch out for, how Rachin Ravindra performs. Trent Boulder's back in the squad, but one key player that we talked about in the subscriber podcast was Glenn Phillips, and he finishes the best batter for the Blackcaps in the series. 174 runs. Next best was Finn Allen on 123 runs. And you had Glenn Phillips scoring his 174 runs at a strike rate of 153, which is bonkers. I'm still incredibly intrigued about Glenn Phillips moving into ODI cricket, because as we said on the subscriber podcast, far less experience in the one-day format for the Blackcaps. Whether it's Glenn Phillips or whether you've got some other observations, what tickles your antenna from that Blackcaps T20 series moving into the ODIs?
Well, I'm just checking something, because when they announced that Kane Williamson was going to be in the World Cup squad, so they had picked one player for the 15 before they picked the rest of the 15. They also announced that they're gonna announce the squad, like the full squad, at Ish Sodhi's old high school. Which I realize now the reason they picked Ish Sodhi, because we joked about this off thing for the last one, because when they named the T20 World Cup squad, I think they went to Martin Guptill's high school and then didn't pick Martin Guptill. So it seems like a bad omen. I'm realizing that's probably the reason they picked Ish Sodhi, is because he will actually be in the country when they announce the squad, whereas everyone else will still be over in England, or I think they're going to Bangladesh, I think. Not a full squad, but close to a full squad. I think has some games in Bangladesh as well. At least the guys who need the games anyway. So I think Trent Boult was there, and
For those who don't remember, Martin Guptill, the T20 World Cup squad was announced at his old school, Avondale College. Martin Guptill was the incumbent opener for the white ball team. Big announcement, lots of buzz around Martin Guptill. Doesn't play. So shout out to the Blackcaps and shout out to Martin Guptill. But observation from the series.
Glenn Phillips.
What about
like it's not just the destructiveness, but also like the consistency of it is what was so impressive. It's just like when you run through his scores, he's getting 20 to 40 plus every, like, as a minimum across these games, and he was scoring runs in the warm-up games beforehand. He seems to be in some pretty nice touch, which is very important, because he's likely to have quite an important role in the ODI squad at the World Cup, which is also likely to mimic his T20 batting more so than it is for pretty much anyone else in the squad, because he's probably going to have to be the dude who comes in and does what Jimmy Neesham used to do as the closer later in innings. The last 10 overs, that's for Glenn Phillips, especially now that Kane Williamson is in there, because that means there's less likelihood of Phillips needing to bat higher up the order. And if you lose a few wickets, he's easily good enough to cover that, no dramas. But his main role, I guess, with the bat is probably going to be the guy who can hit some sixes at the end of the innings. And he can hit some sixes at the end of the innings. That's not a worry. He's been doing it nicely against a pretty good England bowling attack too. And it was a funky old series where they got thrashed in 2 games and then they thrashed them in 2 games. Like, there were no close games. So the 2 games into the series, it looked like the Blackcaps were in a disaster, until you step back and realize, well, it's only T20, it's a warm up, and these things fluctuate heaps. And yeah, they fluctuated back the other way for the Blackcaps in the last couple. And Glenn Phillips, big part of that. An informed Glenn Phillips is a very, very, very good thing for the Blackcaps.
And the series played out how we expect Blackcaps cricket to play out. They usually start slow because they're just sussing out information, they're just figuring it out, and they always build into tournaments or the series. And you're always going to see it. It's the same with the Warriors, I reckon, where it's like Warriors, they're struggling first 15 minutes. Dylan Walker comes on, changes the whole style of footy. Blackcaps lose the first game, all the headlines, like some of the headlines you see from the England series just gone, oh, they got a hiding, England blast away the Blackcaps. It's like, there's 4 games to play. What do you know? Last 2 games, Blackcaps win. So I'd like to see everyone chill out. And because we have noted how the Blackcaps operate, they just figure it out throughout the tournament. They figure it out throughout this series. They build their way in. They get the information. They do the research, and they do the mahi to improve over the course of series and fixtures. Shout out to Neil Wagner as well. He's playing for county cricket. He took 2 wickets. No wickets in the first innings and 2 wickets in the second innings. Somerset was smoked by Hampshire. So shout out to Neil Wagner. And I'll throw out like the ODIs against England. Will Young's in the squad. I think that's going to be an interesting series for Will Young because I've got him in the World Cup squad. And I've got him in the World Cup squad ahead of Henry Nicholls. But it could be a bit of a shootout to see who gets more runs out of those two. As I said, Rachin Ravindra is going to be operating as the second spinner in the series. And this is a fantastic seam unit. Trent Bolt, Matt Henry, Adam Milne, Tim Southey, Kyle Jamieson, Lockie Ferguson. That's what we want to see. So is there another player or someone who you're intrigued about for the ODIs coming up against England?
I mean, the return of Trent Bolt is pretty cool. And we're going to get a nice little run of Trent Bolt playing some ODI cricket. I'm not sure where he is, like, statistically in terms of wickets for the Blackcaps, but I do think he's nearing on that 200 ODI wicket mark, which is a nice little milestone that he'll surely surpass over the next couple of months. And we don't know, but could be the last extended stretch we have of him in a Blackcaps jersey. So it's at least something to savor throughout this little journey. Yeah, I don't know. There might not be room for Henry Nicholls or Will Young in the ODI squad now that Williamson's available, but there's certainly not room for both of them. So I like that you highlighted that particular little head-to-head, little mano a mano, because this is maybe the last chance. I would imagine that either they've probably sorted on their squad already, knowing the Blackcaps, but if there is still room to adjust expectations, this is the last chance. Other than that, I'm going to say Daryl Mitchell. I think Daryl Mitchell is a dude to keep an eye out a little bit in terms of does he get any overs with the ball, because I do think that's an element that is something that has been, well, I think everyone knows he's been underbowled internationally, particularly in the shorter formats where he's got a little bit of certainly in domestic level, got a nice history of being able to pick up some nice tidy runs and bowl in the death, which is something that they don't have a lot of, particularly if Jimmy Neesham doesn't play. But also, I mean, if Glenn Phillips is the closer, he's probably batting at 6. Daryl Mitchell's in the top 5. Daryl Mitchell absolutely deserves to be batting either 4 or 5 for the Blackcaps. He's also got a decent record playing in England against England in various formats. So that's a nice little confidence booster for him. But I think he's another one who the Blackcaps quite need him to be a good, nice middle order force. So he's someone who, if he gets a few nice runs the way that Phillips did through the T20 series, that would be a pretty timely boost as well.
This just sounds lovely. Will Young, ODI batting average 49.3. Devon Conway, ODI batting average 45.8. Daryl Mitchell, ODI batting average 43.6. That's pretty good. Sprinkle in Fenelon, Glenn Phillips, and obviously Tom Latham does it all. So None of them are in the World Cup squad just yet. We've only got one bloke in the World Cup squad, Kane Williamson, one-man team. That's all we need. Big up to him.